This is Glenn Healy.
Hi, this is Braden Holtby.
This is Daryl Sutter.
Hi, this is Brian Burke.
This is Jordan Tutu.
This is Keith Morrison.
This is Kelly Rudy.
Hi, this is Scott Hartnell.
Hey, everybody. My name is Theo Fleury.
This is Tim McAuliffe of Sportsnet, and you're listening to the Sean Newman Podcast.
Well, welcome to the Sean Newman Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Brady Rock. I was about to say Brady Rach and fuck it up, but thanks, sir, for hopping in here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Now, I brought you in because in the process of like starting what's on the board over there, the bike trip we're about to accomplish, whatever we want to say, here in June. I was walking around talking to a few different people, and one of the versions was kind of like, actually, there's another guy biking. I think it's Lloyd Edmonton. I'm like, ooh, do tell me more. And we started talking about it, and it led me down this rabbit hole, and now you're here. So, Brady, first off, just give the listeners a little background on you. Maybe there's some people who know exactly who you are, but other than being a boy from Macklin, Saskatchewan, who is not a hockey player, what else should the listeners know about you?
Oh, not a lot. Like, I'm a pretty basic guy. Like, compared to some of your other guests, I feel like I'm just a regular civilian. But, yeah, I'm from a small town. I married my high school sweetheart. I work here in Lloyd at T&T, Tank and Trailer. I'm a B620 tank inspector and vessel inspector, and I'm a welder. So I have a little bit of a background in personal training. You know, I like to stay active. Just a pretty normal guy. But
yeah, pretty normal guy that's still doing, I don't know. I think it's cool what you're about to do, right? Like biking from, I guess I could say what he's gonna do. He's biking from Lloyd to Edmonton to raise some money for Heart and Stroke.
Yep.
Right, Heart and Stroke.
You bet.
And I don't know. You could just be. You call it a regular guy. I call myself a regular guy too, right? Like I'm just Sean Newman. I just go about my daily business, work in the oil patch like everybody else, and get up at 6 a.m. and have a coffee with people and try and chat about things. But I don't know. It might seem small to you to bike from Lloyd to Edmonton because certain people bike from all over the place, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for somebody who's never biked, 5, 10K, that'll seem like a pretty monumental task. And I don't know. I just think I wonder where it sends you in life by doing something like this, because once you accomplish this, as we all know, you're going to want a little more.
Mm-hmm. And that's how it goes every time. Start with a 50. Last year I did 100K, and yeah, it was hard and challenging, and it just was so rewarding when I was done. I had to keep going, so this is where I'm at now.
So when you do 100K, are you like balls to the wall as hard as you can go?
Oh yeah. I pedal downhill. I try and stop like the least amount I can just to fill water, grab a snack from my backpack, and keep going. Like, I don't really make it a leisurely thing. I make it a challenge for myself. So, yeah.
Well, that's where, you were talking that you listened to Biking Canada. That's the one thing. We met people of your makeup going across Canada that were like trying to do like 200 and, I don't know, 50K a day, and they just wanted it over. Mm-hmm. And we were doing,
it's quite the task.
A leisurely 110, 120K a day, just kind of like tootling along. And I call tootling along at like 20K an hour. I mean, you still got to bike it, but I just, I don't know. It was a tour, and you're essentially about to race to Edmonton then, is what you're saying.
Yes, yeah. I want to, like, at first I thought I wanted to do it in 10 hours, and I want to aim for more like 9 hours. Google Maps says it should be a little over 11, so yeah, I'm going to really try and push myself, and I think that's like, when people biking, they're just like, oh, well, biking's easy, that's awesome. Well, like, I'm trying to make this like full exercise. Like, I'm trying to push myself and do work myself continuously for the full 9 hours or 10 hours. So that's the challenge I want to put on myself.
Who the hell is telling you it's easy?
There's so many people who appreciate it, who have got on a bike and actually done it. But the first thing people say, like, when you start saying you're biking, they're, oh, well, I heard biking's pretty easy. And it's like, well, I'd like to take those people on a bike and just go for 20K. It's pretty tough when you're doing it for exercise. So
I don't think anyone who says that has ever been on a bike and felt their ass want to fall off after hour 1, let alone hour 9 of going as hard as you can.
Yeah, big time. And just being by yourself too, like that's another challenge.
Yeah, mental part of it.
Yeah, big time. But it's just funny because some people are like, well, I took my bike to work the other day. It wasn't too bad. It's like, well, I mean, good for you. Like, that's awesome that you're getting out and moving, but it's quite the challenge. Especially like, so when you biked across Canada, like what did you do for recovery? Like it sounded like you guys just kind of went and you stayed in a hotel room and slept. Like I'm taking ice baths, I'm stretching, I'm getting a Theragun from my wife. Like,
listen, I don't know how to explain this, right? Like Jim Taylor from Grinding Gears was explaining all these different intricacies of bikes and blah, blah, blah. And I said, Jim, just give me a bike. I'm just going to go bike, okay? Like, well, I mean, fix my bike. I'm going to go bike. And he's talking about pedal size and blah, 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 blah. I said, Jim, I don't care. Just put me on a bike. I'm just going to go bike. When we biked Canada, we were naive. We were green. We were dumb. There wasn't no talk about recovery. There wasn't no talk about nutrition. You know, on this bike trip with the 9 people and just hearing you say it, everyone's like, well, what are we going to eat? I'm like, we're going to stop at a grocery store. We're going to get some food. We're going 48 hours. I don't want to hear about nutrition. I just want to go do it. To me, it's like you can overthink
Big
all
time.
these little things.
Yeah.
And saying that, you can also wreck yourself. And like I said, I don't know. When we were biking, we ate tuna out of a can. Okay? The flavored tuna because you got tired of everything else. And you rip the top off, turn it into a scoop, and you just eat it out of the can on the side of the road. I don't know. We just figured it out as we went.
Yeah.
But things have changed
Wild.
immensely with anything to do with sporting, exactly what you're talking about. Like, there's just so many different avenues to make sure your body's at a peak performance.
Yeah, big time. And like when I biked home, I biked to Macklin last year. I said I did 100K. It was the same thing. I kind of just flew by the seat of my pants. For about 2.5 months, I just went out on my bike, pedaled as hard as I could till I couldn't go. Went home, slept, tried to stretch a little bit. I was kind of playing around with my diet a bit and how much water to bring, but like this time I'm a lot more prepared.
You're dialed it in.
Yeah. I'm getting my recovery done. Like 2 days after my bike, my legs aren't really that sore. Like they're a bit sore. This weekend I biked a 160 kilometer bike ride. I did my first century to Vermilion, and yeah, like my backpack was stuffed right full of stuff. Like I had carbohydrates and I had just enough water and snacks, and I'm learning when to take breaks, and it's way different.
I feel like I should be asking you for advice then, because I'm always been don't overthink it. Just get on the bike and ride.
Oh yeah, and I'm a trial and error guy myself. Like I'll go out and I'll do a 40K and I'll be like, well, I didn't really have that much energy this time. Maybe this time I'll bring this kind of snack. Or
so what's one of the things that you found has helped the most then?
I would say just getting the right amount of carbohydrates. Like I was always just drinking water, and now I take a carbohydrate powder drink, or I take some of the gel packs along. And surprisingly, for food-wise, a peanut butter and jam sandwich, I can't find any better energy. Like I pack 3 of those, and I usually plow through about 2.5 of them before the end of my bike, and I can just feel it getting back on my bike. I get that sugar bump, and I get an insulin spike in my legs, and the lactic acid goes down, and I can fly after that.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's
it's been my best thing.
You sound like Mikey Dubs talking. That's exactly what I feel like. Is because Mike always, when he gets in here and he starts talking, well, he's already been bugging me. Him and Ross Thompson want to bike from Saskatoon back with us. So
Right.
they want to, like, what does Mike say? He wants to encourage everybody. He doesn't want to worry about pushing anyone. He just wants to help them get on their bike and encourage them to keep biking and whatever. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome, right? And he's like, I got all these things for you guys so you guys can stay healthy and nutritious. And I'm going, I don't know. I guess I look at 100 kilometers a little differently than most people, but that's obviously because I've done it before, and is it going to hurt? Yeah, it's going to hurt a little bit, but I'm looking forward to the pain. Like, bring the pain on. Like, too much of life these days is, I don't know, Netflix and chill, and that's fine too, but I could use a little bit of hurt in my days.
Yeah, it kind of makes you feel alive as well. Like, even this weekend when I was biking, like the wind was at my back a lot of the time, and it was freaking gusty out. And I was going down a hill for probably like I don't know, 2 or 3K. And I was like, well, I got to just turn around. I got a bike against the wind up the hill. I got to challenge myself because I'm going to be doing a 220 kilometer bike ride. And if it's easy like this the week before, like, I don't know, it just makes me feel alive. I bike into the wind. I scream like a crazy man. I turn up my music. It just feels good.
I've been saying, I read God, or maybe I watched a thing on Netflix. I bag on Netflix and chill, but I think it was a Netflix documentary on a soccer team in Europe. And they were like the lowest seed, and they got a draw. And I don't know all the inner workings of soccer, so I don't think my audience, none of you guys care about soccer either. But anyways, it was a cool story because they were low seed, and they get drawed to who they play. And so the coach built them up and said, we're going to play the best team in the world. And you watch, and that's what we're going to prepare for. And it was Manchester United. And they drew Manchester United. But instead of being deflated because they walk in and now they got to play the best team, everybody was fucking psyched because they'd been preparing, we're getting the best. And then they went and beat the best and ended up winning the fucking thing. Yeah. And I'm like, when it comes to biking, you got to pray. You got to prepare and pray. Like, I'm getting the worst headwind ever. Bring it on. Let's do this. And then if you get anything better than that, you were already pissed off because you wanted the worst, right? Everybody
Right.
keeps saying, what if we get a rainy day? Oh, fuck, love biking in the rain. Yeah. Bring it on.
Oh,
right?
I love it. I seriously love it. And I feel like you go a little bit faster as
you
well.
do. Well, less friction on the tires, right? Like, I hate, I'm not the, I've done one partial triathlon in my life. Showed up in board shorts to swim, right? Like, maybe not the smartest thing. And they talked about drag, and I was like, drag, swimming around a pool a couple times, it'll be fine. Almost drowned. That was tough. But look at my body size. I'm not built for swimming. But you understand when you do things, when you bike to work, a mountain bike is just fine. Like, it's not a big deal. When you bike 200 and some K, every little thing does help, right? Especially when you're doing it for speed. So, like, what you wear is going to matter. What probably you fuel yourself is, as much as I go, it's not that big a deal. It's going to matter. What type of bike you have certainly matters. And if you get rain, that little bit of moisture just causes less friction or whatever on the tires, and you can feel it. Like, you
it feels
absolutely,
like you're gliding.
Yeah. Well, there's no restriction or no friction to slow you down or something like that.
If it's funny, if you actually saw my bike, you'd probably laugh. Like, I don't got a $2,000 bike. I don't have an expensive bike with drop-down handlebars. I have a hybrid bike. It's got skinny tires on it, and I bought clip-in pedals this year for the first time, so that's helped a lot.
What did you think of the clip-in tires?
Oh, I wiped out so many times. The last 2 rides I did were the only times I didn't wipe out, but it's almost impossible to bike through town. If you got to stop at a light or something, I just wipe out. Like, I wrecked my bike. I think I was doing a 100-kilometer bike ride maybe about 4 weeks ago, and I stopped by the Kit Scotty corner there, and I hit a bump trying to slow down to take a break, and I packed out, and I jammed my shifter up against my tire, and it's tough. It's a weird feeling to be clipped in like that.
Yet, once again, all the little things, all that little extra energy you lose if you're not clipped in. Did you notice that when you first started?
I definitely did, yeah. Going up hills, being able to have that upstroke that's a life changer.
So I've been biking, training for this bike, and I wrecked my clip-in shoes I never got a new set. So you can imagine what 15-year-old shoes look like. They weren't in exactly great condition. Well, I've been biking in my running shoes, and I'm like, frick, this sucks, because you can feel it. Like, once you've had it, even though you're not worried about packing out, which I don't have to worry about that, but you lose all the energy, and you're like...
Yeah, it kind of makes you feel like mechanical with the bike. Like, even if your knee's out to one side, like, you're still getting that like nice stroke as compared to a pedal where your feet come off the pedals or you're only pushing down. Yeah, it's different.
Now I got to go back to your bike. What type of bike? So you got just where did you get it from?
So maybe about 4 years ago, I bought it from Sport Check. It was a $500 or $600 bike, just a hybrid bike. It's kind of like a mountain/road bike, and it's got thin tires on it, but it's got 21 gears. It's when people see what I'm riding on, it's laughable, really. Like, for the distance that I'm traveling, like, I need to get a new bike, and I was planning on buying one this year, but bikes are so damn expensive right now. So I thought I'd retrofit this bike to a road bike. So I bought drop-down handles. I bought the brake handlebars with the shifters in them, and I bought a different I don't know, handlebar stem, and my bike just wasn't able to be transitioned to a road cycle because it wasn't built for that. So I had to return $500 worth of parts maybe, and I ended up just welding a bar on the front so I could rest my elbows. And it looks pretty funny, but it works. It does the trick.
That might be the most painful thing about your entire story, and people probably won't realize that unless they bike a lot.
Yeah.
But that's super cool.
Yeah.
You talk about
unique.
nutrition and getting the right clipping pedals and all the things to make sure you're fastest, and you got a bike that...
Yeah, it's not suited for what I'm doing, that's for sure.
You realize you get, and I could be wrong, some expert biker will tell me different, but you realize you get like a full-on touring bike or a full-on like bike that's set up to do what you're doing, like a road bike, you'll probably be even faster, like immediately.
Can you say that again for my wife, just so she can hear?
Well, I happily, I bought my bike well before I ever met my wife, so she never had to see that bill come across. Although, you know what? I shouldn't say that. We spend, in today's age, this is specifically to your wife, we spend money on silly things all the time. And if you're going to think about, so I spent $2,000 on a bike, and I remember being 19, 20, and going like, I don't know why I'm spending this much money. But here I am 15 years later, and it's a bike that my son said to me, he's only 5, he said, Dad, you need to get a new bike. I looked at him like he just shot me. I'm like, I ain't getting a new bike. You kidding me? This thing, I hope will last like another 40 years. It's been money well spent. So your wife, it'd be money well spent, especially if you're going to keep doing it.
No, she's pretty good. I just like to give her a hard time. If I really wanted to buy a bike, she'd let me. Like, the amount of money that I've spent just trying to gear my bike up, she's been cool with, so.
You should stop in and talk to Jim Taylor. Jim Taylor's the owner of Grinding Gears. He's coming on this bike.
Oh, okay.
He's using a retrofitted, it's like what year did he say? 1983 something. You want to talk, I laugh about your bike, but honestly, I'm like, you should see the bikes that are coming with us. So it's a 1983. I hope I'm getting this right, Jim, if you're listening. And he loves it because of the story. It's originally a bike from California. There was only so many of them made. The guy who made them all, he's been in touch with because he kept track of where they all landed, and he found it. Now, I might be butchering this, but I believe he found it in the ditch. And Jim, obviously being a guy who owns a bike store, found it and went, this is a nice bike, and like fixed it up, and he can fly on it. And when he's biking on it, you're like everybody was like, but he's so fast, right? Like, he's going to ride that? I'm like, that's pretty kick-ass, right? Like, that's a story.
That is a story. Yeah, it makes it interesting, too.
So maybe you just need to get in, and maybe Jim can help you out because, I mean, Jim's getting his tires pumped here a little bit, but if the man can hop on his bike and do what we're doing, in saying that, we met going across. It was like in the first 2-3 weeks of biking Canada, and we were going east to west, which I don't suggest doing that. But definitely not. But we were coming. I don't know. I can't remember if that was in New Brunswick or somewhere over there. And there was this overweight, heavy guy, like probably, I don't know. Don't want to be too rough on him. 40 something maybe. Looked kind of like Hagrid from Harry Potter, right? Like I mean a big guy with a little trailer on the back of his bike, and he was riding a mountain bike across Canada.
Holy shit.
And I remember thinking, like, even as little knowledge as I had then, I'm like, imagine how much energy he loses all the time from his shot. Like, just like every
the tires,
push,
shocks,
just everything, just gone. And he was having a grand old time. So,
what do you have no timeline, I mean.
Yeah, just tour.
Yeah.
It's a hell. This morning, I always forget this. Somebody said me and Jim again have been having the argument. He thinks it's boring to do long distance on a road bike. And because he's a mountain bike guy, right? They're mountain bike, whatever. And I'm like, I love the peacefulness of it, honestly. This morning I was out and going down by like Diamond 7. And there was like, my wife will love this, but there was like 8 deer ran across in front of me. And I was like, man, there they are. This
Yeah.
is, like in a
You see
vehicle,
weird things.
in a vehicle, you're like honking at them. You're like, get out of the way. And you're slamming on the brakes because you don't want to wreck anything. I run into that deer, I hurt, right? Like
Big time.
the deer's going to laugh at me, but I don't
Get
know.
crushed.
So are you riding are you riding a few times this week to ramp up, or you?
No, Friday was my last bike, or Saturday was my last bike before. So now I'm going to be doing stretching, meditating. I'm going to be just doing a little bit of core exercising.
You're a meditator, are you?
Just for this bike, just what I've read. So I've been trying to do it about 3 times a week, and it's helped. It's a mind game, honestly, when you're out there by yourself, pushing yourself. If your head's not in the right place, I mean, it makes it 2 or 3 times as hard, I think. But yeah,
well, I can't say, I'll bike in the mornings, but that's only like 20K, right? Like nothing. And even back when I came back from playing hockey, I'd bike maybe 40K by myself, and whatever, 40K is an hour. Well, not an hour, just depending on the wind, I guess, but let's call it 2 hours by yourself, which isn't that big a deal.
mm-hmm.
What you're talking about, is going to be a little bit of a lots on your mind.
Yeah, if you have something on your mind and you go out and you bike for 4 or 5 hours, by the time you come home, I'm exhausted. I'm thinking about it, and I'm sure my wife can attest to it. Like, I'm a mess. If my brain is in the right place and I'm like calm and relaxed, and I'm trying not to use as many calories as I can on my actual thoughts, rather just use it towards my legs and my energy on my bike. Like I'll start my workout even with just some like slow acoustic music, kind of just relax and get going. And my second half of the bike, I'll really bear down. I'll listen to a podcast, or I'll start listening to some music. But I just like to conserve energy, and I feel like when my brain is spinning, I'm just burning so much energy on nothing. Like you really think about some weird things when you're alone for that long. So
what is your go-to, like when you're on the bike and you're tossing on the tunes or a podcast? What are you flipping on?
Yeah, I'm a big podcast guy. I listen to Joe Rogan. I listen to Starting Nine Baseball. I listen.
Joe Rogan. All right. Joe Rogan. Love Joe Rogan. Okay.
Yeah, love him.
Have hardly listened to him since he switched over to Spotify. I don't know what that is with me, but it has really bothered me. Why did he have to? Not even the money thing. I get it. I just don't know why Spotify is such a hard thing.
Mm-hmm.
Are you still loving on him with even Spotify?
Yep. I'm still listening to him. Like, I mean, I get a little bit distracted now. Like, I actually stumbled across your podcast, and that's really eaten into my podcast time.
Hey.
But I've probably listened to like 10 episodes, and I'm always wanting to listen to something different. I listen to a little bit of Dax Shepard. Just pick the brain, like all sorts of podcasts.
Fuck, Dax has got some great guests too.
Yeah, he does. Like, I don't know what it is. It's just I love listening. So.
Well, I don't think for sure you're not the only one, right? Like,
mm-hmm.
I drive every day for work right now, probably, I don't know, 4 hours. Like,
yeah, that's a lot.
And in the beginning, I would listen to a podcast or an audiobook at 1 speed, right? And people who are just start out, maybe you're still at 1 speed. And then somebody said, you can listen at 1.5. It's actually pretty good. And certain podcasts, if you listen at 2 speed, is really good, just because of the way they talk, right? And all of a sudden, now in a 4-hour period, you can hit 2 Joe Rogans. You can hammer out some things. Not that you need to hammer. Like, I love to enjoy, but sometimes, like, some guys are just slow speakers.
Mm-hmm.
Hell, I'm a slow speaker. What am I talking about? But like, you get on a podcast and you turn it up just a little bit, and holy crap, it can be really enjoyable.
Yeah. I need to focus on 1 speed. I usually listen to them while I work, so like I'm trying to do 2 things at once, and if I'm plowing through something, it's going to be tough for me to focus on 2 things. So I'm gonna give it a try. But yeah, I usually listen to about 4 hours of podcasting a day, so that's more than enough. I don't want to run out of content.
That's fair. Now, why? I want to kind of get into this, and I told you me and Brandy had kind of talked about it, but. Why are you biking, and what are you raising money for, and why does that mean, so much to you?
Yeah, so about a year and a half ago, my uncle passed away from his second heart attack, and my family on my dad's side has a history of bad tickers. So, like, more or less, I wanted to be raising awareness for heart health and people's personal well-being. Yeah, unfortunately, after my uncle passed away, my grandma Rach, she finally had succumbed to her long-lasting effects of her stroke as well. And it kind of just hit me all at once. Like, I was really scared for my future. And, you know, I just don't want that lineage of heart failure and, you know, stroke to just keep going down the line. It really, I don't know, it hit me weird. And I just felt like I had to do something. I couldn't just be another statistic. That's pretty much what I'm doing this for. You know, my grandpa Rock passed away at the same age as my uncle.
How old?
55 years old. So
shit.
And my uncle had 2 young kids, I think 14 and 19 or 9, sorry. And it was just sad. Like, you know, it's too young to be having a heart attack. But it kind of sent me down a rabbit hole. I went to the doctor right after that, and I was super scared because my dad told me, like, you know, I don't need to quit smoking, or I don't really need to change my diet because all the men in our family die before 60 anyways. And that scared the shit out of me. So back to the doctor. I went to the doctor and I got a checkup, and I kind of told him my family has a history of heart disease, and I'm worried. And he asked me 3 questions. He said, first he took my weight, and then he asked how my diet was, and then he asked if I smoked. And I don't smoke. I maintain a healthy weight, and my diet's fairly clean. And he wasn't really that concerned about me. And that kind of, you know, took me, it just kind of felt weird. But, well, my genetics are bad. So, like, you know, I'm sorry, I'm fumbling around with my words.
No. It's quite all right. You're trying to figure out, like, if you got 50 years left on the old planet, or whether, you know, it's shorter than that. For myself, one of the things that like I say about COVID is, or this, not a COVID, but the pandemic year, is like, I've been a guy who's tried to maintain something similar to you. Probably I got 3 young kids, and so, you know, we the gym comes and goes, and I know I wish I was I ended up building one in the garage because I found out that trying to get out of the house and away from things was becoming tougher and tougher and tougher. The reason it was probably 3 years ago, I got to the heaviest weight I ever was, and I was like, okay. And this is coming from a guy that, you know, played competitive hockey all over the place, and, like, for 90% of my life maintained a very healthy weight, could put whatever he wanted in his body and not ever have to worry about it. And then, you know, as you take away the competitive side of things, where you're in the gym every day and you're on the ice once or twice a day, and you're really active, and you draw that back a little bit. You know, sitting in a vehicle for 4 hours a day doesn't really do anything for you. You know what I mean?
Definitely not.
And you're probably, you know, drinking coffee or whatever else while you're doing it. Not that coffee's the end of the world, but you kind of get the. Well, my dad had a heart attack at 42, and so I think about that all the time, right? Like, 42, for me, that's only 7 years away.
Yeah.
Like, geez, if you don't play your cards right, not that that's something that's happened all throughout our family, but, you know, like, at the same time, you can tell yourself whatever you want. That's part of your bloodline, your lineage, right?
Right.
At 42, somebody's had that, right? It's like, okay, so let's keep our body in a better, a better shape. Let's try and keep the stress, if possible, to a minimum, because, you know, Dad at the time, I'm going to talk to him about it on Father's Day. I'm excited to talk about his trucking days when they almost lost the farm and the stress that came with it and everything else, because I can't imagine. And that's how I actually run my life. So when I hear you talk about understanding what your bloodline, I totally get that. I admire what you're talking about.
Yeah, and sorry, it's hard to, like, convey. Like, I don't really talk to too many people about it. So when I'm trying to talk to this podcast about it, it's really important to me. And what I was really trying to say there is like, with my doctor not being super concerned about me when I heard that heart disease is really genetic, like it's one of like the more preventable things, like compared to I would say cancer or something like that. Like you can really take care of your heart, and unless there's like, basically what he said to me is he wasn't going to do any advanced testing because in my lineage, nothing really pointed to any like specific genetic heart disease. It was like a lot of the people in my family who were affected were overweight, or they smoked, or they didn't exercise, one or two or three of those things, right?
Right.
And those are all just easy changes you can make to your life, even if you don't go hardcore. You don't bike to wherever in Saskatchewan 1,000 kilometers away, or you do a 220 kilometer bike ride. Just, I don't know, just taking care of yourself is so important. And some people don't realize that. They'll go buy a big fancy house and they'll keep it clean and change the siding, and they'll buy a big fancy truck and put rims on it and polish it, and they'll take care of their kids and their mothers, but they don't take care of themselves. And you know, it's okay to take care of yourself, and it's okay to work on yourself, because if you don't, you can't take care of all those other things. Yeah. So,
well, wouldn't you, it's kind of where we're at in society, like across North America, maybe even into other parts of the world. But like for so long, if you go back 100 years ago, I mean, even if you wanted to drink and smoke, it was all manual labor.
Mm-hmm.
Like you were, not to say people didn't die young, they certainly did. But like as far as, you know, your body, everything was coming from like gardens or off the farm. Like you weren't getting, for the most,
processed foods.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like you think about like 100 years ago, KFC wasn't around, so you weren't getting no fried chicken, right?
No.
And so like, it's crazy. And we'll speak here. Just think of how many fast food, quick, easy things to get food to you is.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in Finland, I was amazed at how little of that there was. It just wasn't fast food there like there is here. And fast food is so, well, I mean,
it's convenient.
Very convenient.
Very convenient. Too convenient, actually.
Well, and our society is built around convenience, right? Like, you know, we're all so busy that let's pick up something that's quick and easy so we don't have to make anything. And then plus there's dishes and everything else that comes with it. I know all about that because, you know, with kids and everything, your dishes go from here to like to the roof, and you're like, oh my
God. You know better than anyone.
That's right. But that's society, right? Like we want things to take less time. We want to get there as fast as humanly possible. We want the next, well, I mean, look at the iPhone. What are we on to now on the iPhone? Like 11, 12?
I think, yeah.
50?
Can't keep up.
Right? And that's, I get that. So are you saying then that after talking to the doctor, you're not worried anymore?
No, like he obviously said like, you know, it is partially genetic, but like as long as I'm like checking my blood pressure, or I get my checkups, like he said, like the way that I take care of myself, I shouldn't have to worry. And you know, if something down the line, if someone in my family someone were to actually have a bad heart, well, then that's like very concerning to him. But when he started talking more about my family members and what they did and their habits, like he was right away saying that like you're a product of your environment.
Yeah.
Like, you kind of, that's really going to affect you if you follow down the same lineage and I don't know, you follow down and do the same things that they do. Yeah, I'm going to be very concerned about your heart, is what he told me. But if you continue to make good life choices, like
don't smoke.
Yeah, don't
exercise.
Smoke is huge. Yeah.
Be conscious of what goes in your body.
Yeah.
They seem like really easy steps, right? Like the you know, I interviewed my mom for Mother's Day, and she was smoking at 13 years old. It blew my mind because my mom is like, I've like never even knew. Well, I shouldn't say I never knew she smoked. I'd heard stories about it, but I mean, like as kids, never, like ever. She hardly drinks, right? To hear she was smoking at 13, and she's just like, well, I mean, back then everybody
smoked, yeah,
right. So like the smoking thing in today's world, there's still a ton of people that smoke. But overall, like I think in Baker's world, you can't even smoke inside geez, what's the word I'm looking for? Like their property. Like you can't smoke on their property. Think about that. Like there's not a smoking area anymore. Like
Times are changing.
You just can't smoke. It's like, oh man, it sucks to be a smoker these days. And then it's like, well, whatever, right? Like, but I mean, that one's easy. The one that is really, really, really tough, in my opinion, isn't even the exercise. That's a conscious choice to make. It's the food one. The food, even today, even if you want to be like, okay, I'm going to make sure I don't put X in my body or try to. Man, that's a tough ask, right? Like
Big time, yeah. What do they say? 70% of your makeup is diet, and 25% is exercise, and then 5 or 10% of that is sleep. So, I mean, diet's huge.
Huge.
Yeah. People often neglect it, and they think, oh, I'm going to go out and go for a walk. And don't get me wrong, that's awesome. If you're going to go out and move your body, that's amazing. But, like, it's got to start in the kitchen for sure.
Well, you want to know a funny story about Canada? I don't know if this was in the podcast. I tell this one all the time because, so we go from Newfoundland all the way across. We get to Calgary. And I see some of my best friends from high school, right? I am 2 years from high school removed. And Curtis Clark, a guy who's been on the podcast, comes on or meets up, and we're having a couple beers in Calgary. And he looks at me and he goes, I'm not going to lie. I thought you'd just be smaller. And it actually, like, you know, you see my body. Everybody knows my body frame, right? Like I'm like 5'6"3/4", and I've always been somewhere between 180 to like 200 pounds. I'm just this like small, stocky guy.
Yeah.
But he's thinking, you've just biked 3/4 of Canada. I thought you'd be itty bitty kind of thing, right? And I took it and I'm like, fuck you, right? Like that kind of stings. But then I sat and thought about it. I'm like, okay. Like I'd been eating whatever I wanted, right? Like it doesn't matter. I'm biking. Like imagine the calories. So the only thing I cut out over the next, I think we had from Calgary to Vancouver, I think it was 7 days. So I think in a week, all I did was cut out one thing, French fries. Just one thing, French fries. Lost 10 pounds. Lost 10 pounds in 7 days. And I was like, oh, okay. Right? And so, like, diet's huge. And saying that,
Small changes, too.
I know that, and it's still tough because you get in your head and you just want what you want, right? Like, nah, but I want that, right? Instead of, and that's you know, you talk about mental. Dietary is a lot of mental, man. Coming over your, like, just beating yourself, like, I don't need the third piece of whatever. I don't need dessert every single meal, or I don't know. I mean, that's a lot of it.
Yeah. And it's okay to treat yourself. Like, you don't need to just eat clean all the time. That's not living life. You need to reward yourself for the hard work you put in. But, like, it's okay to have a donut. It's not okay to have a donut for a month straight every single day. Like, you know. But, yeah, I hear what you're saying for sure.
I think that's what people struggle. I struggle with it. I don't have to say about people. I struggle with it.
I struggle with it, too. Like,
I'm a damn salesman. I take out donuts all the time. It's like, God, I got to put them in the far back corner of the truck. Just don't look at me. Stop talking to me. I don't want you. Just let me hand you off and let me get out of here. Right?
Yeah. No, it's easy to get carried away, too, especially when you're doing something like that every day, bringing donuts to customers. Like, we get them at our shop a lot, and you got to try not to eat them. But, yeah, some people, I don't know, they have no self-control, and it's a tough thing to learn. It's something that can't be taught, really.
But you got to start small, too. You know, was I listening to a podcast? Doesn't matter. I listen to way too much as well. Not too much. Like, I love it, right? But they were talking about, like, even when it comes to exercise, like getting up in the morning, stop focusing on, I got to do this for like 80 days straight for it to mean anything or for it to, like, actually impact me. It's like, no, just win one day. Just win one day. And when you win that day,
small victories. Just
win the next day. And when you win that day, just win the next day. Because if you can start to string those together, then what will happen is, you know, my body used to, like, crave a donut, right? Because it knew what it was going to taste like. Oh, it's going to taste good. Let's have one of those, right? And when you start biking or running or lifting weights or just eating the proper things, your body will tell you that too, right? Like, ooh, that felt good, right? Like,
yeah.
You know, when you talk about recovery, one of the craziest things about my legs is, so bike this morning, and they feel freaking great right now. They're like, ooh, we could probably do that again, right? Like, that's pretty cool. Like, and the first time, like 3 weeks ago when I first started biking, after 5K, Brady, My butt legs are like, what are you doing to us, right? Like, don't do that again.
Yeah, for sure. What was I gonna say? Sorry, I forgot.
How can people follow along with you? Are you gonna be like no hand in it? Instagram story, like, hey guys, kilometer 10.
That's where I'm gonna kind of go, is my Instagram story. I can't update a bunch of things. My wife's actually gonna try and follow along with me to refuel me, so I don't have to carry so much water and stuff. But I'll be just posting to Instagram as I get to certain towns, or every 50K, kind of, just so people can, keep along with me and see where I'm at and how I'm feeling.
What's your Instagram handle?
Brady Rock 33.
Now, ladies and gents, when he says Brady Rock, he actually means Brady Rach, R-A-C-H. I don't know how that turns out rock, but we're Brady Rach, Brady Rock.
I get that a lot.
So Brady, B-R-A-D-Y-R-A-C-H 33
yeah.
on Instagram.
Yep.
Well, I'm excited. That's this Friday.
Yeah, that's this Friday. Took the day off. It's coming up. And I'm not going to lie, I honestly was more nervous to come here than I was to do the bike. So I think I'm ready.
Yeah, there's nothing to be worried about stepping into this room. When you finish, we'll just get to have, instead of some coffee, we'll get to have a celebratory sarsaparilla. But we'll wait until I'm done my our trip as well, because at the end of the day, I should be consuming less of that, is what you're telling me, so that I'm in the best possible shape.
That's actually something I've cut out, I should say. With my diet, that was one of the major changes. I haven't had a drink since Easter. Not like I'm a huge drinker, but yeah, I just cut that out of my diet. I thought, if I want to be serious about this, I got to push myself to reach a new goal. And I never went that long without a drink. So I thought, I'm just going to try and cut it out and see how I feel. And I got to say, I feel pretty damn good. Like, that could also be part of my recovery, and that could also be why 100%. I have so much energy. So,
part of a book club, and now this has got to be, we've been meeting once a month for, I think it's 3 years now, and it was like, I can't remember, I was journaling, and I was trying to like change a bunch of things in my life. All the stuff you talk about, I've fiddled with, here and there, right? Some of them I've been better at, some of them I've fallen off the face of the planet, but one of them was drinking. I was like, drinking really impacts a lot of your life. And if you just cut it out, all these things will start to come in line. It'll be easier. Like mentally, it'll be easier to be like adjust things. In saying that, that's tough, because I love, just like a lot of people, a good social drink. I love going out with friends, and, us having kids, it doesn't happen as much anymore. But when you do, it's nice to sit and have said beer. Reason I bring up the story is, I remember approaching the book club and saying, hey, like, anybody want to do like a month no drinking? Everybody's like, a month? Oh my God, that's a long time, right? And then you do a month and you realize, that it is the shortest period of time ever. You just got this mental block,
not bad at all.
Right? And I forget what I ended up doing, because it was when I did the live stream. I did, 50 some days or whatever it was. And the one thing is you never wake up hungover, like, ever.
Nope.
You can wake up a little sleep deprived, but other than that, you always wake up with a smile on your face, I would say, which is pretty crazy.
And the weekends feel longer. Like, for me, that's been huge. I don't know how many times I've woke up on a Sunday feeling it was work. Like, it was, I'm going to work, and it's like, shit, it's only Sunday. Because I don't know, like, you burn away a lot of your weekend laying in bed or recovering from a night out of drinking. Like, obviously, I don't drink 2 nights a weekend like I used to, but if you go with some friends or you have a couple of drinks and have a game night, well, the older you get, the harder that gets. And you just, I don't know, it's been awesome. So,
well, I can attest to that, yeah, because I don't know, it's the same thing with getting up early in the morning, like we're doing right now. It just extends your day. You don't realize, sleep is very, very, very important. Don't mean to say that you don't only need to get 2 hours of sleep in the day, but if you go to bed a little earlier and get up a little earlier, your days it'll be crazy how you're like, man, I didn't realize a day could be this long. And I feel like when you're young, all you want to do is sleep in and piss away the day, so to speak. And that's a hard routine to break yourself out of as well. Kids do it for you quite quick.
Yeah, I wouldn't know, but I am up every morning. That's when I train, is every single morning. So
what time are you up in the mornings?
Usually like 5 o'clock. I'd say. I like to, I don't know, just start my day, do the hard things first, and the rest of the day is easy from there. So, just something I've lived by for about the last 2.5 years. I used to work out in the afternoon, and I'd come home from a hard day of work, and everything was slacking, and I would show up to work tired, and now I get to work and I'm bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and I feel like I'm just more productive all day. It's awesome. So changed my life.
Well, as for biking, what time are you starting on Friday?
I wanted to start at 7, but I'm not quite sure because like I know that my sister-in-law and brother-in-laws, they kind of want to be there at the finish line, and they all have to work on Friday. So I might actually start at 9 now, so they can be there at the finish line for me just because they want to support me. So I'll bend a little bit for them, but
Oh, see, and
I was gonna wake up really early.
Yeah,
but
that. So I love. Well, here we sit at 6 a.m. You're getting a piece of my world. I love early morning. So by the longest day of the year, there's pretty much light at 4:30 in the morning, and no vehicles on the road, and away you go.
Yeah, that's the best.
Right? Like,
yeah. I love it.
What was your first experience like when you got on the highway and you had vehicles whiz by you? Was that a little bit for the first little bit, or were you fine with it right away?
No, it was a little bit scary at first, and like a lot of the times I would ride and I'd hear a rumble strip from a kilometer behind me, and I would slow down and turn right off to the side. But people are actually pretty good. Like the shoulders are nice and big. Like I biked to Macklin, and the shoulders are maybe like 2-3 feet, and that was a little bit scary. But biking along like to Edmonton, like it's awesome. I don't know, it doesn't scare me anymore. Semis are always a little bit of a shock when they come by, but I use them now. I kind of use the wind that they kind of suck you in a bit. So I kind of sit up straight and try and get all the wind and get some speed and get a little cheat in there. But
I was just going to say the semi bump, right? Mm-hmm. Like if you can get the wind off that, it bumps you up probably like 5K an hour. You're like, oh. Saying that, they do suck you, right? Yeah. So you got to be, the first time it goes whizzing by, you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's a little scary. But you even notice that if you drive on like a single lane highway, if there's lots of vehicles coming on the other lane, like the drag from their wind really slows you down. So a semi on your side definitely sucks you in.
Now, have we missed anything on the bike itself?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Well then,
covered most of it.
What we're gonna do is we're gonna slide into the Crewmaster Final 5. We can keep going. I just look at it and I go, well, work is slowly approaching. I'll give you 5 questions. We can go as long or as short as you want on this. I was mentioning to you before you started, you didn't realize by coming on here, you've now become a reserve biker for the bike trip to Tufnell. That
can we actually talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. Fire away.
Yeah, I actually brought some questions. So I don't need them. I can just ask you.
No, fire.
So how's it going to work when you guys are? I guess you could explain it if you want, and then I can ask questions from there. Like,
so June 4th to June 6th, we are biking from Lloyd to Saskatchewan and back nonstop, but we're doing hour-long stints. So not everybody's biking. So there's 10 of us, which means you bike once every 10 hours, or you get a 9-hour break, right? Mm-hmm. So to me, and probably to you, you can go over as hard as you want for an hour, and then you get 9 hours of recovery. Mm-hmm. Now, that's if everything plays out perfectly, meaning...
So it's one person at a time?
One person at a time.
Okay. And following behind the bus or something? Or
yeah, so with COVID's really throwing a wrench in this because people want to say you can't do anything. Stay at home, you can't do anything. It's like, well no, there's rules everywhere. Just read the bloody rules and let's work with them, right? Mm-hmm. And so what we got Tiber coaches out of Wainwright, or Edgerton, donated us a bus. So that's where we're going to sleep. That's where, right? But there's going to be at any one point, anywhere between 7 to 8 people on a 50-passenger bus, all spread apart. Like, we're not going to be around each other at all. And they've got a driver who's going to drive for us, and then we got a pilot truck. So we got to drive the pilot truck ourselves. One person biking, and you just go. So I've never had pilot vehicles for me before. I'm very much the way you talk, where it's just like you get on your bike and you go, and people on the road have been very good to me, and away you go. This one's a little different. Bus in front, pilot truck behind to ensure we don't have any issues. And then out of the 10 of us, this is what makes, to a seasoned biker, somebody who probably bikes every year, they're like, oh, that won't be that bad. Well, here's the maybe the twist then, is 7 of the people coming on this bike trip have probably never biked longer than 5K in their life. So we're asking a lot out of them. And even myself, I biked a long ways, but that was 15 years ago. And so it's going to be a challenge to bike, and see how it goes. And if it doesn't go perfectly, now you got 10 people to help support the load. So if somebody does get hurt or can't go or their body falls out on them, then there's people to pick that load up and carry on.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah. So, and you guys are going to sleep on the bus and eat on the bus. So pretty much like no cooking, really.
No cooking. So I should say Spiro's is going to donate us a hot meal when we leave. So we'll have a hot meal when we leave. And then we bike to Quick Dick McDick in Tufnell, Saskatchewan. Do you know who Quick Dick is?
I've heard of him, but I don't really know who he is.
Oh God! You got YouTube him after you leave here. You'll have a chuckle. Anybody who doesn't know who Quick Dick is, he's been on the podcast 3 times now. So I mean, geez, go back and listen to.
Yeah, I'll go for sure.
Oh, he's a hell of a guy. So when we get to Tufnell, his Tufnell, I don't know, probably the ladies of Tufnell, right? Like it's a hamlet. They're gonna make us a hot meal for the way back. So it's gonna be.
That's nice, at least.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be, at 48 hours, I think it works out to be. Oh no, I'm gonna do the math real quick because I'll butcher the math here. But I want to say, it's here 1,050. It's 22 kilometers an hour pace is what we have to for 48 hours straight. Now, for rookie bike riders, don't get me wrong, to do that even on their hour after hour, maybe that's asking a lot. I'm not so sure. Like, the things you can't predict are weather, right? We get a horrendous headwind, and rookie riders, maybe they're a little slower and whatever. And
how about those Saskatchewan highways?
Oh, I tell you
that's
what,
going to be another thing.
But I don't know. I rode on Manitoba highways. There is no shoulder, so to me, even the Saskatchewan highways aren't that bad. You're on 16; it'll be fine.
Yeah, that'd be good.
But I don't know. It's a stupid idea, right? Everybody goes, "Where's Tufnell?" Exactly. I mean, it's a destination. We go
I've
there.
Never heard of it, but
well, that's because it's a hamlet, right? Like it's like Hillmont. If you've never been around this area, how many people have heard of Hillmont? 0, right? Like,
yeah.
So it's just a fun destination for the first year to see, what happens, and then to get around COVID, we got a bus so that we can ensure that nobody's, because the idea started with biking. I was going to bike 1,060K, right? I was going to do it over a few days and really test the old body and see how it worked. And it's just kind of evolved because the more people you get involved, well, I mean, I think on the weekend we were up to $80,000 on the GoFundMe and corporate sponsorship. But it's all coming back into the area, right? Like I think it's an easy sell. But I don't know.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's such a good cause. Like, yeah, good for you.
I don't
know.
know.
You guys, I guess. All 10 of you.
But I look at you as well, right? I think it's really cool what you're about to do. I'm gonna follow along because I think it's really cool. And I said this, at the start, is you're tying together a couple things I really, really like. I don't bike nearly as much as I used to, but I love biking. Like, I think it's fun. I think it's like peaceful. I like to just kind of be out of the vehicle and see the sounds and see the area on your own legs. But then too, you're a young guy. I mean, you're not 15, but I mean, you're under 30, and you're starting to raise money and do things that aren't for your own benefit, so to speak. And I think that's really admirable. And I think the more I can push you to keep going with that. I hope in, 5 years you're, touring the country, raising money for whatever, or maybe just getting people out and biking with you. I think that's
for sure.
Right. That's really cool. And I think the more people that do things like this, the better off we will be, like as a town, as a community, as a group of people.
Yeah. And it's something that I want to do. Like, starting here, I can't preach about raising awareness when I'm not going to be doing something like this every year. If I can get a couple people to come with me next year, even for half the distance, that'll be awesome. If I can raise money once a year till I'm 60 years old, that'll be awesome. Like, I don't know where I'm going to go with this, but I'm definitely going to be doing something every year. So, yeah.
Well, I tell you what, I could hook you up with about 7 guys that would probably do this with you tomorrow. Like, there's, what has been crazy about the Bike to Tufnell that I didn't I kind of realized, but I didn't really realize, was how many people bike in this town. Like, a ton.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there is a ton, and a lot of them are biking 100K a weekend and stuff like that. Like, I don't think I don't think you'll have an issue next year if you want to have 20 people come with you.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if that'd be that big of an issue. I could be wrong on that. I mean, it's always devil's in the details, right? But at the same time, I think there's a ton of people around this area that love biking.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, anyone whoever wants to reach out to me, like, feel free. I'll go for a bike with you anytime. I'm always looking for somebody to do it with, but I mean, unfortunately, no one really wants to bike the distances that I'm going usually, that I know. I'm sure there are people out there that would, so yeah.
Oh, we can get you hooked up with a couple guys. I'll make sure I leave you with a couple contacts after we're done this, because I know there are guys who go for long rides all the time. Actually, yeah, like tons of people in town. So we'll get you hooked up with the right people, and then you'll be leading the charge.
Yeah.
They'll get you hooked up with a 1983 something bike that can really give you some flair. Yeah.
Hey, I'm always down. I need a new bike, so if anyone wants to help me out with that, feel free.
How are your Dodgers doing this year, on a side note?
Not
as a baseball guy.
Not good. A lot of injuries. It's been a slow season compared to last year, but my favorite player's out, Cody Bellinger.
I'm a Bellinger guy.
Yeah. I've been following him since he's a rookie. He's my favorite player. I got a ball from him when we were down in Arizona at a ball game, so yeah.
I got to say, LA has they got a great logo. Like, they really do. The color's great. Everything's great, but they got a great logo. Some of the logos in baseball are just like it's 2 letters, but how do they make 2 letters look good? They somehow make it work. Like, it's like, man, that's sharp.
Yeah. Not like the Mets. Their logo's a little bit ugly. The Yankees can do it though. Pretty popular logo. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's slide into, unless you got any other questions. You want to fire?
Yeah, like, let's see what else I have here. Well, yeah, like, I guess one last thing I kind of wanted to talk about was like, people are so quick to make excuses, and I really found out. So about 4 years ago, I was doing personal training professionally, and so many people like had excuses for everything, and I noticed that more and more every single day as I was training. My knee hurts, or this hurts, or I have trouble doing cardio because I'm overweight, or I'm too skinny, so I can't really push this kind of weight. I can't go to the gym 3 times a week. Like, I'm too busy with my job. Question for you is, how do you stay so motivated? You have a full-time job, you have 3 kids and a podcast. Like, how do you find the time and energy?
Okay, that's a large question.
Sorry, it's a bit loaded.
No, I actually so I'm trying to get better at, I have a lot of thoughts that go through my brain, so I try and write, but I went with a 4-month stint where I didn't write anything, and then I mentioned Vance Crowe a little earlier. I'm in a book club with him, and me and him got talking one day. He's like, you should really write that down. I'm like, all right. So 2 years ago, I wrote about time in my journal. It's just kind of my, pack of thoughts to try and unpack it, so to speak. And I wrote that time is everywhere around us. We just have to recognize it and then, use it to benefit. So that's the way I've approached even doing the podcast. So people ask all the time, how do you find the time? And it's like, well, I don't know. You could sit down tonight, and I got no issue with this because in the playoffs, I will do it. And it's probably no different than your Dodgers. Is the Oilers played, I think it was 56 games this year. And if I sat down and watched 56 games, do the math with me, that's, 100 and some hours of hockey. And it's like, I don't judge that. It's like, listen, I wish I could watch more Oiler games. Mm-hmm. But I've made a conscious choice of I'm using my free time at night to do interviews, sit down, and podcast, right?
Right.
I've learned that before work, if I get up at 4:35 in the morning, which I have not been great at lately, I'm not going to lie. COVID has not been friendly to me. I say this all the time. One of the things about the bike trip that I wanted to do was put a cattle shocker off my ass and get going, right? And I've been laying around too long. At least I feel I have. And so in the mornings, if you get up at 5, kids aren't up yet, wife ain't up yet, and you get this 1 to 2 hours of extra time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, that's what I mean by the time is all around us. But I've learned something in the last 2 months because you felt it. I meant to say this at the start. We were supposed to have done this a week ago, right? And what did I do? I slept through it. And I do really appreciate you being no, man, it's not a big deal, right? Because for the listeners, Brady shows up here last week and I'm nowhere to be found, right? I took that man, if I say I'm going to be somewhere, I'm somewhere. Mm-hmm. And what I've learned over the last 2 months, is although the time is all around us, if you don't have the energy, it don't mean shit.
Yep.
And so that's when it comes back to what you put in your body, your sleep, all that stuff. Because although you got the time, if you don't have any energy to do anything, it doesn't mean a hill of beans.
And that comes with making those life changes as well,
Right. So when you talk about not drinking and how you feel every morning and how your weekends are extended and everything, I remember that. I'm like, I love that. But that's a fine balance because at the same time, I love sitting around with somebody and having a beer or two, and I don't want to feel guilty about that, right? So it's
As do I.
Get your mind around that because to be so hardcore to one side, David Goggins, right? Just extreme, and it's man, he's amazing. But I don't want to live my life like that. I just don't. Mm-hmm. But to be, I don't know, on the other side, Bob Stauffer. I'm going to pick on Bob Stauffer, 630 Chad, right? Oiler guy. You're not a hockey guy. I'm seeing the days all the hockey guys get it. Bob Stauffer's a radio guy for the Oilers.
Everyone's turning this off right now.
That 630 Chad, and he's a heavy set, over, in my opinion, overweight guy who talks hockey all the time. It's okay, well, I can find the balance here. But to go back, I guess, to your I try not to make excuses, but that's easier said than done.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
For everyone.
For everyone.
Yeah.
Did that answer it?
Yeah, that answered it, yeah. No, because I was going to say, if somebody were to come in when I was training them and they'd be like, well, my knee's really sore, so I don't have time to do cardio, or I can't really do any cardio, and it's there's a row machine, or, say you're out of service, your back is all jacked up. Well, you can just try and focus on other things like eating healthy, or you don't always have to be exercising, or you don't always have to be maintaining a weight, or it's I don't know. Excuses are so tough for me. And when I look at you and I see all the stuff you're doing, you're just a prime example. For me, it's tough to explain to my family. So when I say, Mom, you should be exercising, or to my dad, and it's easy for them to say, it's easy for you to say, you're 28 years old, you're in shape. And that's part of the reason why I'm doing this bike too, is because this is my way to show them that it's not just me doing the easy things because it's easy for my body to do. I want to show them that it's okay to push yourself, and it's okay to, work on yourself, and it's okay to be uncomfortable, even if it's tough to do. I've given up every single weekend for the last 8 weekends, and so has my wife. So a shout out to her for that, because she's been kind of my support person. But yeah, you can push yourself to whatever you want to do. So,
well, the thing is that people think, take yourself for example, right? Wow, he can do it because he's young, or he's been working at it for 3 years. And people get in their own head all the time, and go back to the thing. Just win the day. Just win a day.
Yeah.
Right. You ate take me for example. We had McDonald's with the kids on the weekend. I never eat McDonald's, but I went, whatever, one time. And then we had Spiro's that night, and I go, oh God, now I'm back to back. And you can see but here it is, Monday. Let's get back on it.
You're holding yourself accountable to it too, which is what people often don't do as well. So it's easy to lose track, like you said, McDonald's, Spiro's, and you feel bad about it. And you don't have to feel bad about it. I mean, you're doing all these other things, but if you are kind of aware of what you're doing, what you're putting into your body, it just makes it so much easier. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, sorry.
I agree with you. I just, for the general population, anybody listening to this, it's like the uncomfortable part is very true. There's like a fear, uncomfortable of like, what are people going to think of me? And earmuffs to my mother who's going to be listening to this, I don't give a fuck, right? Like, but I have to remind myself of that all the time because in today's world, social media, everything is there all the time to remind you if you're doing a great job or not a great job. So to give you, when I first started biking back for this trip, like 3-4 weeks ago, whatever it was, I got up one morning and it was like 5 and it was like -9 outside, and I went for a lap around. I went, no, I'm not doing that. Like, it's too cold. And then I got back. I'm like, you're such a wuss. Like, put on some winter coats and go for a bike. So then the next day I went for one and got out on the highway and remembered what that was like and came back to the house after like 10 minutes. And I went, you were such a wuss. Like, you used to do this. Like, come on. Like, and then I tell this story. I had the lights of the 16 and the Ring Road. And I'm sitting there and it's 5 a.m. and I mean, I don't look like a biker at this point. I got so many, like, I got big gloves on, a toque, a helmet, goggles, like, just so I could stay warm. Because it's like -9 out. And I look over and a guy pulls up and my brain goes, I don't know what he thinks. He probably thinks he looks ridiculous. And I caught my brain saying that and I went, who the hell cares? It's 5 a.m. He's going, holy man, this guy's nuts. Not because of the way I look, because it's 5 a.m. It's -9 out. There's like frost on the ground and I'm out biking. It's like, you're trying to do something good. Remember that. Remind yourself that and carry on. Yeah. Because you just, I don't know, when I first started the podcast, I had buddies go, you're going to do what? But now the same buddy, you know, you're episode 174, go, yeah, keep going. Keep going. Yeah, that's all you can say to anyone starting. Just keep going.
Yep.
Start simple.
Yep, for sure. And just do the small things. Don't try and like set such a big goal for yourself off the start. Just do the small things, see how you feel, and like you'll see where you end up. And it's just like this. You'll have a full podcast, and you'll have people listening to you and tuning in. Like, I don't know.
Point yourself in the right direction. Yeah, and start small. There you go. Right? Because, I used to, as a young guy, Brady, I used to hate small things. I didn't think they amounted to much. I feel like I sound like a complete and utter moron. But like,
you don't.
I remember thinking, and I'm speaking specifically hockey, a guy wanted to get a goal horn. We were at Northland College. We raised a bunch of money, and I thought we needed something practical. We need practice jerseys or something like that. He's like, no, we need a goal horn. I'm like, we don't need a goal horn. Who cares? I got overruled, which was a good thing, because that little sound, which happens, you know, during a game, and not every game, because some games you don't score, some games you're playing on the road, whatever. But that little sound, oh man, you can feel that in the entire building. It's like, that's a small thing, and small things count. And when it comes to your life, going to the gym, you know, it's funny people can't make time for 3 times a week. 3 times a week is, I don't know, for the hardcore isn't that much.
And you don't even have to go to the gym. I haven't been to the gym since November. As soon as COVID happened, I didn't really want to wear a mask in the gym. It's not that I'm against wearing masks. I don't really want to be heavy breathing in my own face. So I went out and I spent about $200 on weights, free weights in the basement, and that's not what I'm used to. And I got weights and backpacks for doing squats. I got my buddy who's a machinist to build me a bar. Everything's been out of my basement. And then when it warmed up outside, I got outside and I started biking. So yeah, there's just different ways to do it. You don't always have to go to the gym, or if you can, I mean, they have all the tools there. It's probably the easiest way to get started, but yeah. So,
well, the gym for me was how I got back into it. But even that comes with uncomfortable. You know, when I first went back into the gym, I had a partial tear in my meniscus on the one knee, so I started doing like squats again, and I was like, done a bunch of reading on it, and I'm like, I'm just gonna start super light. But super light was like the bar for me right at the start, right? Just like the bar, just
almost body weight.
Yeah, just so I can like make sure that I'm not overdoing it, because I didn't want to mess anything up my knee, because the knee sucked there for a while. And I remember that being embarrassing, like being in the gym and being like, I bet everybody's looking at me. I'm like, what a stupid thought. Nobody in the gym gives 2 craps about you, right? Like, they're just all in their head, especially at 5 a.m. Yeah. But everybody gets into that. Everybody's staring at you. Everybody's worried about what you're doing. Nobody cares. right?
When I was training people, like that was like a big thing. There's like a room we can go to work out. Like they thought people were going to be watching and they had to be embarrassed. And right away, once you get talking with them, they start to feel better. Like, they're not watching you. They're doing their own thing. They have their earbuds in. Like, you're just getting out here. Like, people are proud of you. People are happy that you're making the right decision to like start working on yourself. Like, I don't know, people, you can't get in your own head about that kind of stuff.
That's one of the things that like CrossFit or I did a jiu-jitsu for a little bit, and I really enjoy the team aspect because people actually talk and they're really proud of you for coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Where in a gym aspect, nobody really talks. It's almost not taboo, but it's kind of awkward, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And so you can't see or hear what people are thinking, but everybody's really excited for you to be there. And if people would just say that, more people would be in the gym, 100%, because that'd become a culture in my mind. And some of the smaller gyms do that really well because they can. But the big box gyms, nobody's putting in that effort to really change that culture. Because a lot of people, I mean, especially if the rookies walk in, it's overwhelming at times. Like, where do I even go? How do I even, right? Like, whatever.
Yeah, and you don't really want to walk around and give people advice. Like, you feel like you're kind of intruding on their personal space. But I don't know, when I was training, it was like easy for me. Like, people, I would walk up and people would come ask me questions. They were shy. Hey, like, it's kind of embarrassing, but how do I do this? And I would just be wearing a trainer shirt. So I'd go over and spend 5 minutes showing them. And they're like, thanks, man. Like, I feel so awkward here. I wasn't locking my elbows on this, or I'm doing this. I was like, don't worry about it. No one's watching you. Like,
yeah.
The more you come here and you watch other people do it, the easier it'll get. So it's just good that you're coming. It would make them all smile. So it feels good to help people. So
it certainly does. It certainly does. Well, let's hop on to the Crude Master Final Five, okay? 5 questions, long or short as you want to go. Shout out to Heath and Tracy, supporters of the podcast since the very beginning. The first one I love to ask is, if you could sit down with somebody like this and pick their brain, who would you take?
I guess I'd probably sit down with my grandpa Rock. This whole journey is kind of about him. So he died when I was, I think, 10 years old, maybe even a little bit younger than that. And I never really got to know him. So I'd love to just sit down and like see the man he was. And, even if I could teach him some of the stuff I learned today and he could teach me all the stuff he'd learned in his life, like, I just feel like because of heart disease and because he actually had prostate cancer as well, our time was cut short. So that's something that I've often thought about.
When you're done this trip, what's next? Have you even given it a thought?
I'm like pretty one-track mind. Like, I just want to crush this out, and I feel like if I focus on too many things at once, I'm not really gonna be able to expend all my energy just on this. So I don't know. I know I want to do more, but I don't really want to start setting targets on something until I've crushed this one, because I say I'm going to do it, but I haven't finished it yet. So that's where I'm at.
Well, I look forward to, when you're done, where you go to next. I'm excited to see that, because I can sense it in you that I feel like this is going to, well, maybe it already is. It's going to become a little bit of a healthy addiction where you're going to, that felt pretty good. Where to next? And you get hooked up with the right people in Lloyd, which there are a lot. There's a ton of people that ride a lot, and I think that's an interesting little community of a bunch of interesting souls, so to speak, that I think you'll fit into immediately. When COVID is done, and you could pick your bike up and haul it anywhere to go ride, would you stay in Canada or would you go somewhere else?
Well, I don't really have the time to go too far with it, and if I had someone who would want to go with me, I would take it elsewhere. But I don't know, I've always wanted to like do like a long mountain bike in Canada, so like maybe that's what I'll do next year. I'm not too sure, but I would like to start somewhere and in the mountains and end on the other side of them. That's something I want to do, whether it's next year or the year after. That's something I'd really like to do. So
mountains on a bike, that's a lot of fun. You want to talk about some interesting roads when you're going down them? There's some interesting roads there. Yeah. No, that'd be a fun, once again, I don't know how much time I'll have, but I would gladly throw my hat in the ring if I had time, because those are some of the things that I would like to get back to, and I hope someday, if I go long-term thinking. I hope someday to have my kids come with. I think it's a hell of a
That'd
way
be
to
really
experience the world is on a bike.
Mhm.
And people just don't realize if you get on a bike, you don't have to break the sound barrier. You can just tootle along, and all of a sudden you got half the world in your rear view mirror just by stepping on a pedal. It's pretty crazy, honestly, once you get going. I'm seeing it with the 7 people that are rookies on this bike trip. They didn't think they could bike 20K. Now they've all done 20K, and it's like, oh, that isn't so bad. So I look forward to seeing where you go with this. Now, are you a big reader? I know you said you're a podcaster.
Yep, I usually read about a book every month.
All right.
Recently, it's been about that.
So what book are you either... go over the last year. What's been one of your favorite books you've read?
Well, I read Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. I really like that book about split decisions and why you make them. And right now I'm actually reading for the second time Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, because I really wanted to get that done again before I started this bike before I did this bike, because I read that book before I did my 100-kilometer bike, and it just, it drove me to even get started more. So
David Goggins makes me want to run through a brick wall. I listened to him the first time on Rogan, and I was like, oh my God, like I'm going out today and we're doing something and his book is fantastic.
It is. Yeah.
Did you read, or do you got the Audible?
I read it. Yeah. I read it. Sorry. I read that book in about 7 days. I couldn't put it down. I just started going. And so I want to do that again before my bike here. I'm about a quarter into it. So
Malcolm Gladwell is a good one as well. I haven't read the
Blink.
Yep. I was thinking I've read 2 of his, Outliers and one other, and they're all fantastic. Finally, I know you listen to a lot of Joe Rogan, so I haven't been listening to him on Spotify. I've listened to like 2 episodes. So if you were going to say you got to listen to this episode in the last 2-3 months, give it to me, because I'm going to listen to it today on the road trip out to North Battleford.
Oh, I don't know the lady's name. I actually just listened to a really interesting one, and I kind of shared it to my family. It was this lady who was talking about your reproductive organs, and like how all the parabens and plastics in our society are kind of like really hurting our reproductive organs and like slowing down the population of our planet. Like I forget who it was. I think she was some doctor. I don't know exactly. Before we leave here, I'll let you know.
And I'll make sure at the start of this episode I go, old Brady Rach. Rock. I'm kidding. Couldn't remember the name, and this is who it was. I'll make sure I put it in the notes or talk about it. But
it's really interesting. So.
Well, thank you, sir, for indulging me at 6 a.m. and coming in and sitting down. Best of luck on your trip. I look forward to seeing you complete it. And honestly, man, I look forward to seeing where you go with this, because I think it's a pretty cool endeavor. And honestly, in the biking world, you can go anywhere in the world, and there's roads everywhere. So wherever you want to go, the road will take you there, and you just got to step on the pedal. And I'm excited for you.
Perfect. Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. This was fun.
Hey folks, thanks for joining us today. If you just stumbled on the show, please click subscribe. Then scroll to the bottom and rate and leave a review. I promise it helps. Remember, every Monday and Wednesday, we will have a new guest sitting down to share their story. The Sean Newman Podcast is available for free on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever else you get your podcast fix. Until next time.